What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Cutlass Board Games channel. And today I want to talk to you about how I build a Marvel Snap deck that steals cubes from my opponent. And the main thing I believe comes down to picking a fundamental core of a small number of cards that you see how they work together and you enjoy playing with them. Because if you're like, oh, I'm just going to copy the best thing and play the best thing, and you're not having fun playing those particular cards, you're not going to be motivated to play a lot of games playing that deck, and it's going to feel difficult to climb. But for me, those cards is this exact package, and these four cards work really well together. First up, we have Bast, right? So Bast sets the power of all cards in your hand to 3. Now, what this means to me is it creates a deck building challenge, where you only play things that have less than 3 power. So when you play Bast, you get the maximum value out of it. You get up to +9, or if you play it on turn 2, up to +12 power to the things that you're going to be playing later on. And for stuff like Iron Man, that's really strong. And then the other cool thing that Bast does is that if you have Bast and Adam Warlock in your hand, when Bast adds +3 to Adam Warlock, you can go Bast into the far right location. Adam Warlock now has 3 power into the far right location. That's a total of 4 power, and that's a pretty good chance of getting you a card drawn. And drawing cards is actually really powerful. And the next thing is we have Iron Man, which gets a huge boost out of the setting it to 3 from Bast, because it's really adding 6 power on its own, but then it's doubling everything else. And then Mystique is just doing the same thing, but it costs half as much. Pretty much, right? So, and Adam Warlock drawing you extra cards means that you're more likely to hit Iron Man on 5, and you're more likely to have Mystique on your turn 6 to copy it. Now, all of this is the core of which I have built a lot of decks, and I'm going to show off some of them for you now. But this core concept is something that you find the set of cards that you really enjoy playing, and you figure out how best to put it together into a deck. That might mean that you really like Moon Girl Devil Dino, and that could go into a bunch of decks. You could be playing She-Hulk in there, you could be playing Nick Fury in there, you could be playing whatever things that you think are fun, but then also you're fine-tuning it to find out what is competitive. And that's kind of what I'm going to show you here, how these 4 cards that I really like are going to match up nicely into a few other decks. First of which is Destroy. Now, this is this particular 12 because I'm missing Null. I would like to play Null in one of these lists, because similarly, Null gets set to 3, but then its power is just whatever the thing is that are destroyed anyway. It's not like you're turning a 20 into a 3 as if you're playing something like Death. So Null doesn't care about what Bast does, and you can still play it, and it is a big card, which I really enjoy about it. And so this is something similar. You'll notice we've got the same things: Bast, Adam Warlock, Mystique, and Iron Man. Mystique only has the 1 target in Iron Man, which is not usually something I do, something I try and avoid. I tend to have 1 or 2 other targets. But in this case, it can be pretty good. And you also have to avoid Iron Man being eaten by Venom if you're going to Arnim Zola Venom into everything. Now, aside from those 2 minor drawbacks, this follows all the rules that we established before. We've got Bast, turns everything into a 3. The goal here is to kind of have a turn 6 that looks something like a 20 power Deadpool next to an Iron Man. That could be really, really strong. Or you just like on turn 4 you have a Venom that's going to be reasonably big, and then you turn 5 Iron Man, turn 6 is Mystique copying it, and then your big Deadpool or whatever, because you have a few other things that can fit into that slot. And Bast, once it's come in and it's had its effect, setting a bunch of things to 3, like Venom, which gets pretty good boost out of that, Carnage, and Bucky cares less, but if you Venom the Bucky, it is a worthwhile boost. And then Bast can just be eaten. Bast doesn't need to stick around as a 1 power card. So it has that minor benefit also. And then the next deck that we've got is Surfer Negative. This was the first list that I played using these 4 cards, and this is an okay version of it. I'm playing Zabu, probably doesn't really need Zabu, but it's got all of the big hitters. It's got Mr. Negative, it's got Wong, it's got Mystique to copy Wong or Iron Man. Iron Man off the negative is a 0-5, which adds 10 power instead of 6 if it was Basted. But you're looking to hit Bast early to turn Mr. Negative into a 3 power thing instead of a negative 1 power thing. But in the same way, it hits every card in this deck. Turning Brood into a 3 means that it puts 9 power into play, but you can also still Forge onto the Brood. Adam Warlock can help you draw your key cards to play them on curve, such as Mr. Negative, so that you hit the Mr. Negative on 4 as early as possible and as consistently as possible. And then after his negative something, you can be then drawing 2 more cards that have been negative to get a larger shot of hitting that inverted Iron Man, and that larger shot of being able to play Silver Surfer on turn 6. Just not drawing Silver Surfer is the worst part of playing Silver Surfer, so why not use Adam Warlock to make sure that we draw it every time? And the next one, a bit more goofier, is Galactus. Since they nerfed Galactus, he actually gets a boost out of Bast now. Not that it's super relevant, but I thought that would be kind of goofy and fun. And also all of the ramp cards that help you Galactus earlier also get a boost out of Bast. It's just like weirdly all kind of lines up, where pretty much the entire first 5 cards, maybe with the exception of Ant-Man, but I do often play it on turn 1, will help you draw cards with Adam Warlock. And you can just stack a lane, because you know it's going to be destroyed anyway. And then Adam Warlock makes sure you draw Galactus in the same way that you want to have Silver Surfer in your Silver Surfer deck every game. In your Galactus deck, you want to have Galactus every game. And then your end game condition is playing Valkyrie on the final turn to make sure that you win. But an average game would look like playing Wave on 3, playing Galactus on 4, playing Iron Man on 5, and then Valkyrie Ant-Man on 6 maybe. You also have options of just going Iron Man and then Mystique copies Iron Man plus Ant-Man, which is 12-24 power, which is pretty good. And you just never lose to Shang-Chi because you don't have anything with any real power on the board. And then our last deck, which is the one that I play a lot, and this is Tempo Bast. This is basically a zoo list that doesn't have Khazar because it doesn't really play that many 1-drops. And the idea is to get Bast to boost any of the cards in your deck to 3. Hitting Mysterio is actually better than you'd think. Normally anything that is a 4 turned into a 3 is -1, but Mysterio going from a 4 turned into a 3 is actually going from a 4 to a 9 because all the clones become 3 power each. And then if you have Blue Marvel and on turn 5, Mystique on turn 6 copying Blue Marvel, and then you play Mysterio, Mysterio is actually adding 15 power for 2 energy, which is kind of ridiculous, honestly. That's kind of weird and powerful. And then like everything else is kind of in the same way, right? Like Angela goes from being 6 peak if you don't move anything out of the way, to being 9 power peak. Like Angela now can suddenly die to Shang-Chi if I fill out the lane. And the idea is to consistently draw as many of the cards as you can, play as many of the cards as you can. Often you will have either Iron Man or Blue Marvel left in your hand at the end of the game because the Hood will take up 2 slots. Mysterio takes up 3 slots, so you could have 2 cards not played there, like playing Bishop on turn 6 is kind of useless. And then you're trying to fill out the entire thing with pretty much everything that costs 3 and is boosted by some method or other. And all these things come out of this core that I really enjoy playing of Bast, Adam Warlock, Iron Man, Mystique. I found the 4 cards that I really enjoy, and then I found new ways of reinterpreting that strong amount so that when I am playing new decks, the fundamental path to victory doesn't change that much. I'm not having to learn a whole new archetype every time I'm playing a new deck. Whenever I'm getting a new card, I go, does this work in the shell? Can I just put this in? I unlock Darkhawk and I go, Darkhawk fits into here. Its power is less than 3, but it gets a boost from its power from the ongoing effect. And I think that is a really strong way for you to be focusing on building decks where you are both going to enjoy how you're playing it and also going to use that fun factor to push yourself to be playing enough games to be actually getting the cubes you need to hit infinite. And I hope this helps you think a bit about how you are building decks. I do actually make a whole bunch of other Marvel Snap content on the channel. If you want to click these little buttons, There's some other stuff for you to, it's probably worth having a look at. Or you can click the subscribe button, because that's also pretty cool too. I like it when people do that. That makes me happy. And then hopefully I'll see you in the next one.